So as ever, we're going to record, and that's for anyone who hasn't been able to make it. If you have missed any of the other digital mentoring sessions, we've held one every month since we commissioned the project. So there's lots of useful information in there. So if you've missed any of them, you can go to the website, and most of them are up there. Or if there's one you specifically want, just let one of us know and we can find the link for you and you can catch up on it. We've had some guests from around the university and elsewhere to kind of present on their expertise. And we've also run specific ones on various different topics that people have asked us for. So there's lots of hopefully useful information in there. So today, because we've been having lots of conversations with people and we're aware we're approaching the end of a lot of projects. So we're looking towards how to wrap up a project, what you might be thinking about at the minute in terms of outputs. And so that's going to be our focus today. I'm going to run through some aspects of what we mean by outputs and some of the ways you can supercharge them, make sure that they're getting the best bang for buck. And then we'll also have inputs from Abdullah and Kiki. And then hopefully the bulk of what we're going to do today is have a bit of an open session on if you've got any questions, if you've got things that types of output that you're thinking about and you're wanting to check if there's other experiences in the room and that sort of thing. So hopefully it's a useful kind of interactive session, certainly after the first bit, once you got rid of me giving my boring bit. All right, so I'm going to kick off with the presentation. He says optimistically, I've closed the presentation. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Here we go. So everyone should be able to see that now. Yeah. Great. So I've called this outputs and their launch pads because actually a lot of the projects are doing and an awful lot of what it is that we're trying to do with our outputs is not just put them in some dusty file somewhere, not just write them for their own sake, but also to make sure that they're having an impact, making sure they're changing the things we want to change, and that the right people, the people that we want to listen to them, are hearing them and making sure that they get that good launch pad into the world as well. So we'll try and pick up both of those themes as I go through. So different types of outputs, and we've had a look at the different types of outputs that all of the different projects are engaging in. So there's lots of workshops in there, and by workshops I'm including workshops and training sessions, symposia, anything where you're there's someone presenting or someone talking and someone else listening. So all of that captured in there. And there's people who have interviews as some of their outputs, lots of classic written outputs. So by that we mean reports, blogs, articles, books, all of those sorts of things within the written outputs, video and some audio ones as well, depending on whether the video equipment is played ball. Some people have got just data collection, so data sets as part of their output collection, exhibitions, especially ones that are more oriented towards art in there as well, and archive materials. So essentially writing stories up, gathering that evidence and collecting it for posterity, collecting it in one place for the first time. So we've got some projects doing that sort of thing as well. So there might be things in there that you're already planning on doing. There might be things that you can take inspiration from other projects there as well. And I'm sure there's other types that I've missed on the way through. So when we talk about outputs, we mean all of those things and many more things besides as well. And I was trying to define what an output is, because it's a slightly weird word in that it's just the end of a process, really. But there's some nuances to that. So by output, we mean something that's publicly available. So something that is outward facing. So not just the internal process of what we've done to get to the end point. So for example, to do a written output, to do an article, I might do an awful lot of reading. I might make my own notes, I might do a literature review, but none of those things that I've done in my research process are outputs. They're either inputs or they're part of my process. The output is the final product that comes out of it. I'll come back to that example in a while to talk about how I might use some of my products to get more outputs, if that makes sense. So it's publicly available. It's the bit that goes out into the world. It's the product of the research. So it's not that process bit, it's the end product that we're looking for. That's the output. And in lots of ways, it's this kind of longer term mark on the landscape. So it's putting a marker down. It's saying, we did this thing, you know, future people coming back and being interested in this topic. Here's this marker that we did this bit of research. We did this project. And it records that work was done for posterity and for others looking to work in that area. So how can we make sure that our work turns into an output or several? So I gave that example just now about how my work product, how the bit of me doing a literature review, me doing loads of reading, me maybe having conversations with colleagues or interviews, how that might not be naturally an output, but the output traditionally might just be the end bit, the article that goes into the world. However, if we're clever about how we're doing our outputs, we can get more than one output from the same piece of work, okay? So rather than me just going, I've done all this work, but the only thing I've got to show for it is an article at the end, we can be clever and kind of supercharge the work that we're doing a bit more. So the interviews that we're doing, for example, we might think, well, can I publish with permission and with the kind of interviewee's permission? Can I publish little snippets of those? Can I make those look attractive? And can those be part of the outputs that are coming from this research? So I'm not just doing the interviews and putting them into this long form, you know, bit dusty article, but I'm also using them as little snippets, little quotes that I can use maybe as part of a blog, maybe as part of social media output, maybe as part of a kind of animation or a video. So you've got lots of options and you're getting more bang for your buck in the research you're doing. Likewise, I mentioned a literature review that I might do on the way through to get my article. Well, why don't I think about a way I can use that literature review as another output that comes from the research? Again, helping someone else that might be coming into the same territory, doing some of that work so that we're not duplicating the work across each other. So I'm going to give lots of examples of how we can take one output and make it into several as we go through, and also how we can make sure we're getting most boost, bang for our buck, our supercharging from our outputs. So start with workshops. For example, if we're doing a workshop, we might just go, gosh, I've got an awful lot to organize as it is. Organizing a workshop is quite hard work. And you have to get everyone together. You have to think about the speakers. You have to make sure that everyone has food and coffee and tea and all of those things. But there's another aspect to a workshop which can make it just even better in terms of this sort of output, in terms of supercharging the impact and the outcome you're going to get from the workshop. And that's thinking about how you record the change the workshop made. Okay, so for example, if you have participants coming along, can you leave a survey just out on the seats as people are coming in? To ask them, what did you get out of this workshop? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn anything new? Okay, and just that tiny bit extra, just one page, someone will scribble something down as they're listening or as they're leaving. That can then give you an evidence base that when you come to do future work, future projects, you can say, we ran this workshop and actually these different people said they got this from it. They told us, they wrote down in their evaluation that they told us they learned something they never knew before. They heard about this community that they didn't know existed. And so that can be a way of taking your workshop, which is a really important output, but just making it a bit more permanent, making it something a bit more public and a bit more kind of sizable as an output. So that would be testimony is really what I mean there. Evaluation is something a bit more involved. So you might ask people when they come in, so before they go to the workshop, what are your views on this? What are your views on that? What are your views on the third thing? Okay, so you ask them what their starting position is, and at the end of the interview, you ask them the same set of questions and see if their views have changed. Okay, so now you don't just have kind of testimony or anecdote about how people enjoyed the workshop. You've got something a bit more concrete that you can say, actually, before the workshop, people were really worried about this area. I didn't really know how to engage with mental health, for example, in this context. Afterwards, people felt like they had more tools to be able to engage with these things. So you can show really concretely how your workshop has changed how people are able to deal with this topic. Okay, so that would be the sort of evaluation thing. Other things you can do to kind of supercharge your workshop would be to record it. So if, again, it's really important that you get people's permission for these things so that you don't breach any confidences or anything like that. But if you've got people's permission and it's the right sort of workshop, if you record it, then it makes it even bigger than the people who were just able to attend. So you get a bigger audience, people who maybe couldn't travel, all of them can have access to it. And I've done this many times myself, where you come back years and years later and you go, actually, that workshop was recorded and I can just send you the link to it rather than, giving the same presentation again or something like that. And the last way you can kind of supercharge your workshop is by doing a bit of a write-up of it afterwards. So afterwards, and I've seen some really good examples actually from the projects you guys are doing, even something as simple as kind of a longer form Facebook post where you kind of say, we had this workshop, this is how it went, this is the sorts of people that were there, these are the topics we covered. So you kind of do a mini write-up or a blog or something like that, that again, just capitalizes on the work you've already done, the hard work in organizing the workshop. So that's workshops. Hopefully some of the other ones will be slightly quicker. They're less, that was a more involved one. Interviews, I've already touched on that you can publish quotes, so take little snippets. Did an example of this with some of the research I did in a post-conflict setting, and it worked really, really well because most people weren't going to read the big long academic article, but actually you just got these kind of nuggets of gold from our research participants where they said something in 4 words that we were taking 10,000 words to say. And it was just so illuminating that actually just clipping up that quote, what we did actually was so we didn't want to use their own voices because that would identify them, but we could use their words, and we got someone to voice them. So we got someone that had the same accent to kind of talk the words out, and we recorded them. And that was a really good way of just getting that interview a bit more public and a bit more out there. You can also use, depending on the form of the interview, if it's a bit more informal, you can clip it up and use it as a podcast. And similarly to the workshops, you can write up those interviews or blog about those interviews. And there are other more short form ways of getting that same material, all that hard work you've done, and getting several outputs from the same hard work that you've done. Written outputs, fairly straightforward. And I know there's lots and lots of expertise in the room about how to do effective written outputs. I know they also take lots of forms, so I'm not going to dwell on one particular form of written output. The one thing I did just want to flag up on written outputs is the best way to make sure that they're getting out there and having an impact is by, again, thinking about how you can hit lots of different audiences. So not just writing it and burying it on a website somewhere. You're proud of this work. You want people to read it. Okay. So make sure, if at all possible, it's open access, that anyone can access it without paying for it. So it's a PDF. It's in an open access journal. That's really, really key these days. And likewise, if you can write it up in a shorter form for a blog, that's useful. The other thing that written outputs are really useful for is giving a bit of a hook for a media launch. So if you think about some of the news that you see day to day, you'll see the sciences are really good at this, the biologies and the physics. They say, a new discovery shows that such and such, right? And they're really good at showing this new thing they've discovered and telling people that when they launch their written output. Okay, so it might be worth thinking about that in your own context, right? New research has shown that the history of trauma is causing X, Y, and Z. Okay, how can you go, new research is showing that, and put your research finding in there in a really succinct way? And that's the sort of story that media will sometimes pick up on. even if it's even if sometimes media is very anti this sort of work because it's long, it's dry, they see it as quite boring. How can you take this sort of short form of your research? How can you sum it up in a sentence and use that as a way of getting attention in the print or broadcast media? Economic impacts, economic outputs, really important. We tend to forget about them. I think we tend to forget about them because they don't feel like research per se. They don't feel like the kind of they don't feel like what we're about, if that makes sense. We're about, you know, fixing problems and all the rest. But don't forget about these economic inputs, because they're economic outputs, because they're a really important point of evidence, a really important point of change that your projects will have made. So do keep attention to these and think about where they are and how you can collate them. So for example, if project A has actually generated loads and loads of ideas, loads of contacts, and that's led you into project B or C or D, make sure you're recording those, because those are spin-offs from that initial research. If it hadn't been for project A, would you have ended up with all of those extra spin-off projects? And if you wouldn't, then it's a really tangible, important output from that first project. So make sure you're kind of capturing those. Likewise, future grants, and I know there's lots of examples again from lots of colleagues where the first grant, the first kind of step on the ladder, was actually the thing that led to lots and lots of future follow-up grants. And that's something, you know, we're involved in, it's something you're involved in. So make sure you're capturing those grants as part of the outputs of your projects. And likewise, jobs. You know, are there jobs that were created through your projects? Were you able to point to a need and that led to the police in employing an extra person to help deal with this situation? Were you able to point to a problem and actually that's led to a big NGO changing their policy on this and employing more people in a particular division? So pointing to those economic impacts that you've had as well are really, really important aspects of the output, the outcome that you're having as projects. Video, self-explanatory, and tends to be pretty supercharged in itself. People like video, they like watching it. It happens. It's a really good way of communicating your research. I think just a couple of notes on it. One is shorter video tends to be better than longer video. Even academic-y type videos, people tend to like them limited to 20 minutes rather than an hour. It's quite a task to sit down for an hour and watch something. We don't have the production values of Hollywood, so it's quite hard work to watch something that's that long. So thinking about how you can snip something quite short, and also thinking about where you're going to host it. So are you going to put it on YouTube, something like that, somewhere it's nice and available, and somewhere you can share it in lots of different places, and it's not kind of stuck again in a corner of the internet that people might not be able to access. Data. So if you've got a data set, you've collected loads of survey responses, you've collected loads of interviews. Oftentimes they're just too confidential to share much further. And that will be the case for lots of us. It's one of the frustrating things is the data that you've collected is just too sensitive, or you're not confident enough in how it will be shared or how it will be used by others to share it. But if there are aspects of it that you can share, if there are findings from it that you can share that maybe aren't written up, or they're written up but you can share them in a different way, that's a really useful output as well. So remember to keep those and use your data set. It's so rich. It's so hard to get hold of the data. So make sure you're using it as many different ways as possible. And that includes writing it up in several different ways. So if you're writing it up for an article, can you write it up in a blog, for example? Can you write it up in short little summaries, even for Facebook or Twitter or something like that? Archives. So again, I know there's lots of people who have been gathering so much information, so many stories, pictures, videos, all sorts, and you've got all of this material and want to bring it together in one place, in this kind of form of archive. Makes total sense, really good idea, and it creates that kind of cohesion between all of the different things you've been doing in one place. I think the key here to make sure you're getting maximum bang for your buck with it is thinking about platform. Where are you going to put it? And is that platform going to be there for the long term? You know, will you make sure that that platform isn't going to just disappear when someone forgets to maintain the website or something like that? So where can you put it that it's going to stay around? Can you put it in lots of different places so that you're kind of keeping lots of different audiences, but also making sure that if one of the websites does stop getting maintained, it's still there. It's still there for the public. It's still there for that legacy and for the future. And likewise, media. So you can get some really good stories from archives, you know, and I'll come on to some kind of ways you can frame these archives in a second. And lastly, kind of more artistic sides of exhibitions. So I've got a colleague who knows how to talk about this much better than I am. I am not an artist. I like moody, brutalist buildings. That's about it. So Abdullah, if you can talk to the art side of this for a second, and then I've got a couple more slides and I'll come back to you, Kiki. So Abdullah, can I pass to you?
Yes, thank you so much, Ben. Can everyone hear me? Is my voice okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'll just quickly share a slide with you all. Okay. All right, so is the screen, can everyone see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, excellent. So basically what I want to talk about is what kind of evidence can be derived from artworks. And there's two interesting ways in which this might be relevant to your project. Some of the projects that you all are undertaking involve art or artworks or exhibitions as part of the project in itself. So this will be directly relevant. Others of you might be inspired to produce something artistic, even if your primary output is academic or takes a different form. So we'll keep both of these options alive, and I hope that what I'll share with you now will be relevant for both the primary outputs if they're artistic and also for secondary outputs insofar as they're artistic. What I want to focus on now is just a very brief, simple framework for how you might evidence your artwork for the network at large and for your own future in particular. And there's really 5 elements that I want to talk about now. And what I'll do is I'll follow up with each of you with a form that you can fill out that will help you clarify how this artwork can be used as evidence later on. So the first is form. What form does your artwork take? What genre does it use? Is it an exhibition in the classical sense? Is it a performance? Is it a piece of written material? Is it a series of photographs? So that's the question of form. The second is the question of content. What's the subject matter? If your project involves a photography exhibition, what is the subject matter of that exhibition? Now, this is an interesting question because the subject matter could be directly relevant to the content of your research, but it could also be very indirectly related. And that's interesting because art is about the creative process. And sometimes the creative process can take us a little bit far away from the explicit, rational, discursive articulation of a project towards something more obtruse, more indirect. So there's a lot of room within the content to think about your project directly and indirectly. The third is the site of the exhibition. So one primary way of thinking about the site is to say, is it going to take place in person or will it take place online? And then in both instances, how can we further fine tune or understand the site of the artwork? Is this exhibition in a public institution? Is it in a private institution? Is it a one-time event, or is it something that will become part of the public sphere? Insofar as it's online, will this be a website that can be maintained for a while, or is it connected to a brief project that you're currently working on? Who has access to this online website? So these are questions that the form will help you think about further, but I'm kind of opening them up now at this initial stage. The fourth factor is audience. So what kind of audience do you expect? Is it college students? Is it people affected by the community? Is it members of the community that are affected by the issue that you're describing? Is it academics, social workers? So these are important questions to think about because they'll affect the type of work you'll produce and the type of evidence it can be used as. And of course, number. So I'm personally less invested in just statistical amounts, but it's also really important to have on record the number of people attending, the number of people expected to attend, because that will help us gain a better sense of the holistic nature of this artwork as evidence. The final one is commentary. And this is really a space that's being reserved for you to express in a discursive fashion any thoughts you had about the artwork in relationship to the project. Whether you want to elaborate on the relationship, if it's indirect, between the artwork and the project, whether you want to explain or expound upon a factor in the process that wasn't captured by these other factors I've written. So this is an open space to negotiate and dispute and add on to the other factors. And it's really important to really utilize that space in your own terms, because it helps us as a network also think about the new ways in which we might propose artworks as evidence in the future. So I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And what I'll do is I'll write to each of you, each project, regardless of whether art is a primary part of your output, about how you might evidence art going forward.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. As I predicted, far more eloquent about anything than I could be. I'm afraid you've got one more slide from me with my ineloquence, and then you've got more eloquence with Kiki. So lucky you guys. Right, so this is my last slide then, which is around the sorts of things we might want to distill from our outputs. Okay, so we've done all the hard work in doing the research, interviewing people, doing the reading, gathering stuff up. We've produced our outputs in lots of different forms, and we've done our best to turbocharge them and make sure we're getting lots of bang for our buck from lots of different outputs. The sorts of things that I try and always have in mind when I'm doing my outputs, or even when I'm designing a research project, to be honest, is what would I like to be able to say at the end? Okay. And it's not the only motivation we have for our research. It's not the only thing we want to achieve from our research. But it's if someone stops you in the street and says, you know, what did you do from that project? What did you get out of it? That you have that sentence that you can say, we did this. Okay. And it's really simple. And so some of the things I've touched on the way through in terms of evaluation, trying different types of output, including videos and things like that, are about allowing us to get to this statement at the end. So for example, we published the biggest study on something, okay? That can be just the very traditional written research output that you were the first one to gather all of this stuff together. And that's really, really valuable as a statement. But there's loads and loads of other ways that you can produce those statements. So we brought the voices of a particular community to the fore, okay? How do you evidence that? Well, you evidence that, and you've done that through things like interviews and data, your data set and your workshops, okay? So that's how you're evidencing that statement. We educated the public on this thing, okay? Again, how are you doing that? Well, you're doing that through your exhibitions, your workshops, through the archive, through video, and of course, attached to your exhibitions and your workshops is some of that evaluation and that testimony, and some of the numbers that Abdullah is less keen on, but I'm very keen on, and that you're able to say, you know, we had this many people through workshops, we educated this many people. That's really, really valuable to be able to say as a statement that comes out of the work you've done, because it allows you to boil down the value of what you're doing for someone in very short order. Over this many people engaged with our findings, okay? Another nuance in that is you can say this many people from this many different villages engaged in our findings. You're showing not just size of audience, but you're also showing that that audience is from lots of different places, and that you're the project that's brought all of these people together from different regions to engage with the findings. And again, there's lots, you could be doing that through lots of different types of output. exhibitions, workshops, etc. But it's about how you're recording that you've done that breadth of engagement. It's not just that you did the workshop and some people went to it, but you also understand the ways in which that workshop impacted people. There's a number there, or there's a sense of scale attached to it. Or the one that I think is really, really, really effective, but probably the hardest to evidence, and it requires that evaluation evidence I was talking about in relation to workshops with the start survey and the end survey, is we got people to change their mind, right? We all know how difficult that is to get people to change their mind, which is why it's so valuable. So if you can summarize with evidence that you got this many people to change their mind about a topic, that's so valuable and so kind of impactful, and such a really important aspect of your projects. And that can be people in general, the public, it can be policymakers. So it might be a very small number of people change their mind, but really significant people. And so much of that comes from really good evaluation work. So doing that survey at the start and doing it at the end, having testimonial evidence that says, yeah, I actually didn't realize that. That's really good evidence. And that all comes from really good planning around our outputs. Okay. So hopefully you can see that's me coming to a close, but hopefully you can see how just a little bit extra on your outputs, just a little bit more planning or adding an extra element to your outputs can get so much more value for money for you. So that your work isn't just kind of we got this one thing out of it, but we got several things out of it, and we've got this kind of more all-encompassing statement we can say about it. Okay, so that's me done. Kirsten, do you want to tell us about a specific output that we're talking about?
I'd like to, yeah. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Ben. That was really helpful, and I thought eloquent as well. In terms of updates from us on outputs, written outputs in particular, we are excited to announce an opportunity to contribute to a special issue that is organized by the network. A special issue is a collection of articles that are published under a specific theme, and we're inviting submissions from network members that challenge the conventional understanding of time and humanitarian protection. So the work that all of you are doing, any written pieces that focus on the connection between time, violence, and protection. Our aim with the special issue is to present the perspectives of the network and its members on those subjects, and to showcase the different contexts in which we work and where time is relevant. We are looking to feature a mix of traditional research papers and less conventional contributions. So it could also be something like an essay, an interview, or a roundtable discussion. We are aiming for the special issue to be published in a journal called Time and Society, which is an interdisciplinary journal that explores the relationship between time, temporality, and social life more generally, and publishes articles on a range of different methods. So from creative and arts-related explorations, like Abdullah just mentioned, to more data-driven research, as well as theoretical pieces or policy-oriented work. There's going to be an official call for papers that will circulate in the next week. But yeah, if you have any research articles underway, or you have an idea for an article that you'd like to discuss, please get in touch with either Abdullah and I, or your mentor is also a great person to brainstorm ideas with. The submission deadline for abstracts for the special issue is going to be in September, and the final article submission deadline is the end of November. We're also going to run a workshop in September for those of you who are interested in submitting something, to develop ideas together, as well as see whether there's similar themes or patterns that people would like to explore, to see if we can collaborate on articles. With regards to other updates from us, I hope you have all received the guidance for the website pages that we're looking to create for all of you. It would be great if you could send the summaries back as soon as possible, so we can start promoting your work on our website and through our social media channels. Are there any questions about the special issue or the website at the moment, or any of the fantastic content that Ben and Abdullah have shared?
That's good.
That's everyone. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at any point. And then what we're hoping to do for the rest of the session is to hear a little bit about your experiences, the challenges and maybe victories that you've had with fieldwork. Maybe some of you have already gained findings that it would be interesting to share with the rest of the team. And this is meant to be more of an informal check-in session, so feel free to let out frustrations or ask questions about how to move forward with your project. It might be that there are elements that you're currently struggling with, or you feel stuck with some part of it. Anything that you'd like some input in from the team, or that you'd like maybe like to share because you're proud of it. Yeah, I think some of you have prepared updates. So if a project would like to make a start, feel free. I can see you talking, Maya, but I think yes, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I can start if nobody will do it.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. I will share our progress summary actually, because maybe we didn't do any updates before. So maybe I can I share my can I share my screen, or
You can indeed, Maya. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me give you permission. There you go. All done.
Still not working? Let me. Okay. I think now it's okay. So I'm happy to share our. This is like our illustration, which was like reflected from our working with because our work like focus on creativity and writing and illustration. So this is like done especially for the program. So Bending Time, our project aimed to investigate the experience of Palestinians across different generations and locations, focusing on trauma, recovery, waiting, and the concept of time in general. The project targets various groups affected by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including children impacted by war, prisoners, families of the missing, and the professionals of relevant field. The project consists of interviews and workshops. Interviews provide a platform of traumatized individuals to share their stories. Our method was divided in 3 ways. We did creative writing workshops, how to write personal stories, illustration workshop and storytelling, what is the color of time for youth and children, and individuals interviews targeting specific people to document their stories. On creative writing workshop, we did 32 hours of how to write personal stories. We target Palestinians all over the world. We prepared specific materials and exercises. Actually, we had a huge number of participants. We didn't expect that. It was a need for Palestinians. A lot of people that because we said that we want normal stories. We don't want like the big stories that you can hear in every day. Because we always we think that every Palestinian has his own trauma and his own stories, and how to collect these small stories that doesn't belong to the big headline stories. It was very attractive actually to people all over the world to hear this sentence, and so everybody wanted to participate. So we had to like do 4 groups in this workshops, and we had like another trainers to come and to help with us. We investigate a lot about history and memory and novels, archive, because these like 4 elements is very important in Palestinian stories and the Palestinian histories. Like what is the history that we want to have, and which memory that is like worth to be written, and what is the narrative, all these kind of like big ideas, especially that is related to time. We also prepared a series of illustration that discuss time and the traumas, with the duration and time of happening. And also we had exercises about that, because sometimes it's easier to use colors and illustration than words. So we joined these two elements together. We did this. We did actually a series of exercises that can be used to physiological discharge using creative writing exercises like this one, inside and outside. So I think this kind of material that can be used also, we are thinking now to publish this as a collection of exercises alone inside. We also did the children workshop, storytelling and illustration workshop. We did this in children with Hebron, from Hebron, and also children from Susia village. Actually, we talk about time. We did a lot of exercises also about time, discussed time and feeling. It was using color, because what is happening usually with people with traumas and big stories, that they think that all their life is one color. So we are trying to make people feel that, especially children, using this kind of exercise, that you have different colors in your life, and so it's not all the whole color. So how to specify the color of feelings using these kind of exercises. We also have interviews and storytelling in Susia village. Susia village is like 25 years, since 25 years now, they are waiting to be forced to removal. They are very, very close to settlement, and all these people are waiting to be removed one day. So their time and the relationship with time is very, very unique. We had the storytelling and workshops, and we also interviewed some people who's like having their way of repeating circle of time all the time. We also had individuals interviews with this number of prisoners, formal prisoners, which we will use for our book. These were the big stories for us after all these interviews and workshops. What stories worth to write, and narrative we have to note it and seen that must be archived. The outcome now, we in Palestine Writing Workshop, we are like producing material, creative material. We are focusing a lot on children books and illustration and creative writing. So the outcome is a series of books that we have now, 2 books. The Moment That Changed My Life, which is targeting young adult illustrated book. Real stories and reflections about time as a result of the creative writing workshops. It's in progress right now. We finished the writing process. We are in the illustration and printing. And we have another book called Writing About Pain, Short Stories for Adults. This is like having all these the interviews, we are rewriting it and make a new outcome, a new book. It's a book, it's a adventure actually, because I had a lot of problem in how to document stories and write about pain, but at the same time make people, the reader, read it. Why people will read about pain, why what is the philosophy around it, and to make also a good book, a creative book. So it will be like we are making it research, and at the same time we put the researcher voice aloud. so that she can reflect and make philosophical thinking about time and about writing about pain and about these kind of stories, and how to document pain in a place like Palestine, and why. Because it's big and it's everywhere. So why, yeah, when I interviewed people, most of the time they said, we don't want to talk about pain. We don't want to talk about our suffering. We just want to be happy. Yani. So sometimes it's a matter of question why we want to talk about it. So I'm trying to like doing that in a way that is making people read the book, and at the same time have some impact about it or affection about it. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Maya. A huge amount of output there, and really good to hear about some of the kind of more artistic work as well. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to contribute? No need for kind of a long summary, and in fact, we'll probably not have time to do too many summaries. What I should mention though is we're going to have, so as we kind of come to the end of these many of the projects, we'll have opportunities for people to take the whole hour to present on their projects, to present their outcomes. So hopefully some of you will take us up on that opportunity and present to the whole group over time. Mirembe, would you like to go next? I know you've got a time pressure, but again, we probably just have time to focus in on some of the key outputs rather than full summaries, if that's okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mirembe. I work with the Njabala Foundation in Uganda. And our project has been called Pillars of Rectitude, East African Women Artists of the 1960s. And basically, we focused on this time period because of the lack and erasure of women artists from this time period. We have come to the end of this project, or we're in the final stages of this project. We had a symposium on June 9, and I'm just going to show you a highlight video. I won't show all of it because of time, but essentially we had a research team of 4 artists who are working now, and we're basically thinking about how do we connect the artists who are working now to the artists who are working in the 1960s. That is why they were part of the research team. And this project sort of challenged us to think about what does it mean for artists to do research. And there is so much that is still coming out of it beyond the symposium. We will be publishing some research essays and biographies of the artists that we researched. So I will just show you a quick video, and I guess I will leave it to the next person quickly.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
You can, yeah.
All right.
I'm not hearing sound.
I'm very happy to have all of you here today.
Oh.
We know that it's a public holiday and it's a Friday, so people would always prefer to have a long weekend, but you chose the time to be here with us. My name is Martha Kazungu. This afternoon, we have the honor and pleasure to introduce to you a project that we've been working on behind the scenes for several months now, which involves research on women artists from the 1960s.
My name is Liz Kopsige, a Ugandan artist. And I'll stop there because we're supposed to talk about Rebecca Njau today.
It will be a place where children bottled up and trapped like a bird in a cage at home at school, and at every corner they turn, will sing and pour out their feelings of joy, hope, sorrow, and fear, and express them with their creative hands, so that through their creation, they will understand their worth, their goal in life, their rights, and their responsibilities.
All right, thank you so much, Liz. That was excellent. That was lovely. We are now going to have Viola Mohamia talking about Rosemary Karuga.
Everyone, called Nibhan.
I don't know if you can still hear me, but basically the symposium was us sharing the research that we have been doing over the past year with the research team of artists. And it was a great turnout. It was incredible. So we've had a very good time with this project, mostly in terms of bringing this history that is not very known to people here in Kampala and in East Africa. People came actually from Nairobi as well. They came to attend the symposium, and we're looking forward to the publications that we are going to be making from this research.
Thank you very much, Marimbe. We have three more contributions and 6 minutes. So that means 2 minutes each, I'm afraid. As I said, there's loads and loads and loads of opportunity for other input over the next months. So please don't feel like you're only getting 2 minutes. Dia, I think you were first. Hope I've pronounced your name correctly as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben, for that. Yeah, it's correct. Just I will go through our project, Me and Summer, in very brief. So our project basically is about one of the oldest religious minorities in Iraq, who have been before as more than 100,000 Mandarin who live there in Iraq, but now there are less than 4,000 people, because they are all because of the conflicts and violence and the US war and other wars on Iraq, and they left Iraq. So our project basically it's talked about them, their life, and what the misconceptions about that, about them, and it records their life, their stories while they are in Iraq and they are abroad. And also we interviewed the people who are living around them, so also to listen to their stories. So it is two parts. The project is 2 parts. So listening to them and listening about to the people who were around them, how they feel and their memory about them. So some of the outputs we are in the middle of the project. So some of the output that we are planning to get out of this project is the website that is designed for the graphics and their stories and the other narratives. Also theatrical performance, exhibition, and our team succeeded to produce a book, a draft of a book, which is more than 200 pages. It's about their style, their custom, their history, and their values, and their rituals, their language, which is very endangered language according to the UNESCO. I will leave the rest to Summer to complete in just 2 minutes or 1 minute. Summer?
Thank you so much.
I'll try to do it in seconds. I know we don't have time. I think Dia explained everything quite well. We're in the middle sort of the project, so we don't have graphics or visuals to share, but the idea, maybe just to highlight that we're focusing on this concept of time, but through obviously the relationships in displacement. So the relationships between people and communities, and also the relationship between archives, like the narrative. So there's the official narrative that Dia mentioned, the official history, and then the stories, the actual stories of the people on the ground. And so this overlap between these two histories is our idea of also, illustrating the relationship of time between official time of how people talk and describe crises and displacement, and then the personal descriptions of these things. So the official time and personal time. And we're hoping the graphics and the animations will be able to obviously illustrate this and demonstrate it. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Iman, I think you were next. We're testing our mental agility here, going between different projects. Iman, please.
Yeah, hi, thank you all. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my video because I had a I still have a very weak connection. I was going on and outside this meeting. Yeah, I'm very excited to hear all the different stories and ways of thinking that each participant here shared with us. It's really interesting. Our project, I work for Tamer Institution in Ramallah in Palestine, and I can also talk. I think that what Maya explained about the context of working with children in Palestine applies to our work as well here in Tamer. But what we focused mainly is our focus was on children who got house detention orders from the Israeli forces in the city of Jerusalem. So our project aimed at contacting these families and these children and trying to reach out to them, try to build trust with them. And the project was actually implemented inside these houses. So it was really like a unique experience for us as well, because it's like a new space for us to experience. So we worked in collaboration with Ahlam Sharat, who's a very well-known writer here in Palestine. She gave all the sessions, individual sessions with these kids inside their houses. And the main theme of her work with the kids was the concept of time, but also the concept of home, like how we define home when our own houses becomes the second version of the Israeli prison, because when you get house detention orders from the Israeli orders, it means that the child or the adult or the adolescents are forced to stay within the borders of their own houses, which means that even the dynamics and the relationships between the family members changes, because then the mother needs to make sure that the kid is not leaving that kind of border. So it's like creating a new border for the kids, which means that there's like a problematization of the concept of safety and of house and of the home. Within her work with the kids, Ahlam was very attentive to all the, like she made lots of observations about the neighborhoods and about the environments that she's working at, like lots of the expressive writing workshops with kids resulted in like lots of like texts, but also her own observations about how each different story of these 7 different children has its own context and has its own like like its own story. So we're now in the process of looking at all the material that we gather from the previous stages of the project, and our main output would be a booklet that we're gonna produce in collaboration with Ahlam and the designer or the artist, in addition to a short video that we will produce, of course, also taking into consideration all the safety measures and making sure that kids are not going to be subjected to any kind of danger whilst being in this video. So yeah, I don't want to take more time, but that's mainly the progress of our project until now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It sounds like you're grappling with the same thing we all are, which is the specificity and the big picture at the same time. Azadi, would you like to wrap us up?
From Azadi, I know I have very limited time, so I'll only go straight to our happy highlight. Our ethical storytelling and fellowship project had a training for 3 months where our survivors of human trafficking had the chance to tell their stories and narratives in different mediums with the help of expert trainers. So at the end of the training, they had content that they were producing. There was art. We had art, photographs, and writings. And I'm happy to tell you all that our first output for the exhibition will be 30th of July, which is this Sunday. We'll share with you our link so that you can have a glimpse of the virtual exhibition. And we are happy because part of our output was to create awareness in the human trafficking movement and human rights. And we have our friends, family, partners, our community, government officials coming for the exhibition. So it's very exciting to us. And after that, our main and major output is an ethical archive, which is also digital. So after the exhibition, we're going to have a digital archive where we have our content for the exhibitions that we've had from 2021. So the archive is new for us, but we'll have content for 2021, 22, and the current one.
Sounds like a huge amount as well. Thank you so much for getting that in and making sure that we heard that one as well. We are going to wrap up because we've run over time. Just before we leave, there will be loads of opportunities to tell everyone about what's been going on in the various projects at greater length. We'll get onto that and we'll think about how we can do that best. And the other thing to mention is, as we're coming towards the end of a lot of the projects, Heather, Flo, Rana Dajani, and myself will be meeting with different of the projects just to kind of check in where we're at and try and bring things together across the different projects. So you'll have been having your kind of regular meetings with your mentor. Those are to continue, no change to that. And those will be a kind of more reflective space that'll continue. Whereas Rana, Heather, and I are kind of hoping to get more kind of things tied down from each of the projects as we go through. So we'll be getting in touch. One of us will be getting in touch about those meetings. And we hope to be able to kind of hear more about the specifics of what you've been doing and make sure that we're reflecting it across the network properly as well. So thank you very much for your time. Really sorry for running over. I don't like running over, as you might be able to tell. And take care in the meantime. We'll be in touch. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.